Dawson replied that if the Germans crossed the channel, there would be no home to go back to, which is why he and his sons were involved. Collins, unable to get out of his sinking plane, was rescued just in time by Mr. Dawson's boat as Ferrier pursued a German plane. Soldiers covered in oil from the torpedo strike were left floating in the water as the rescue boats were too full to take more. Mr. Dawson explained that one cannot hide from war and they were there on national orders, but the traumatized soldiers struggled with him, accidentally knocking George down the stairs. With very little fuel left, Ferrier managed to shoot down a German bomber threatening the port, but then spotted another enemy plane behind him. Tommy and the others, who had tried various ways to escape, found themselves washed back onto the beach due to the German U-boat attack. Some soldiers gave up hope as the tide rose. Tommy watched in despair as one soldier committed suicide by walking into the sea. British troops used trucks to build a makeshift pier as the tide came in, hoping to use stranded ships to get away. A group of soldiers decided to board a grounded trawler, hoping it would float when the tide rose, and Tommy's group followed. The injured George spoke his final words to Peter. Peter comforted his friend, saying he would be fine and telling George's father that George was a hero whose name would be in the news. A news reached the commander that the French lines were breaking and the enemy was closing in on the harbor. When asked about the destroyers lost to U-boats, the commander explained that only a few remained to protect the harbor while the rest were held to defend Britain, but civilian boats were on the way. The commander stated he would rather face the waves than the bombs, and soon, the civilian fleet appeared on the horizon. The soldiers in the grounded trawler waited for the tide, knowing the enemy could arrive at any moment. Ferrier continued his pursuit without knowing how much fuel he had left. Peter asked his father if they should turn back for George's sake, but Mr. Dawson insisted they were too far along. Seeing a German plane approaching a minesweeper, Peter declared they had to do their part to save the survivors. Tommy sent Gibson out to check the tide. Tommy eventually looked himself and was disappointed to see the water had only just reached the hull. The RAF shot down a Heinkel bomber heading for a destroyer, while the soldiers in the trawler captured a Dutchman they heard outside. The man explained he was hiding from the Germans and waiting for the tide, but warned that the boat was being used as target practice by soldiers outside. Peter's group saw Collins' plane sinking. Collins was trapped inside until Mr. Dawson pulled him out just as he was about to drown. The soldiers in the trawler were terrified as bullets pierced the hull, and Ferrier found himself being hunted by another fighter while chasing a Heinkel. As water flooded the trawler, Alex accused Gibson of being a German spy because he never spoke, demanding he be the one to leave to lighten the load. Tommy defended him, revealing that Gibson had taken the uniform from a body he buried. He was a French soldier just trying to survive like them. Despite Tommy's plea that Gibson had helped them and killed no one, fear and greed took over. The soldiers tried to force the Frenchman out, leading to a frantic struggle. Meanwhile, Peter rescued another pilot from the water, and the Heinkel Ferrier managed to sink another ship. The soldiers on the grounded trawler were under heavy fire. Commander Bolton, looking through binoculars, saw the civilian fleet arriving and called it home. The sight of the civilian boats boosted the spirits of the weary soldiers, while the soldier Peter rescued asked if George was okay. As survivors covered in oil were pulled from the water, Ferrier continued his dogfight with the German planes. Tommy and the others fled the sinking trawler. The French soldier, despite his desperate efforts to survive, was unable to make it out of the water. Peter was informed that his friend George had died. He and his father looked on in grief, but when a soldier asked if the boy was all right, Peter lied and said he was fine. Tommy and the others swam toward a sinking ship and were nearly caught in a fire when a downed German plane ignited the oil on the water. Tommy managed to get onto Mr. Dawson's boat and was saved. Ferrier, now completely out of fuel, glided over the beach as the soldiers below were attacked by a Stuka dive-bomber. Mr. Dawson, who knew planes well because his eldest son was an RAF pilot who died early in the war, told Peter to wait for his signal before maneuvering. Just as the pier and the boats were about to be hit, Ferrier's silent plane glided in and shot down the German bomber. Tommy and Alex looked at the white cliffs of Dover and asked Peter if the people at home would be disappointed in them for retreating. At the docks, an old man giving out blankets told the returning soldiers they did well. Alex, not realizing the man was blind, thought he was being sarcastic because they had only survived. On the Dunkirk pier, Commander Bolton decided to stay behind to help the French soldiers who were still trapped. At a railway station, Alex took a newspaper but was afraid to read it, fearing the public would despise them for the defeat. Peter took George's story to the local paper to ensure his friend's bravery was recognized, while Ferrier prepared to land his plane on the now empty beach. As Tommy read the news to Alex, they were surprised to find people welcoming them with beer and cheers instead of scorn. After landing, Ferrier set fire to his plane to keep it from the enemy and was captured. Meanwhile, Mr. Dawson and Peter read the tribute to George in the newspaper. Tommy finished reading Winston Churchill's speech, which vowed that they would fight on the beaches and landing grounds, never surrendering until the world was liberated from the shadow of war.